It's a crucial week for House Republicans on Capitol Hill. Party leaders are still faced with the daunting task of getting Trump's agenda through Congress and sticking to Speaker Johnson's timeline. And key policy hangups are threatening the Speaker's goal of getting Trump's so-called one big beautiful bill out on the House and onto the president's desk by Memorial Day. Joining me now is the Hill's congressional reporter Michael Schnell with a closer look of what's holding up the process. Michael, what are the biggest hot button issues Republicans are battling over?
Yeah, hey Judy. So look, there are mainly two issues right now, two disagreements that are largely bogging down this process. The first has to do with potential cuts to Medicaid. Deficit hawks, these hardline conservatives who are concerned about the ballooning deficit, for months they've been pushing for significant spending cuts to be included in this legislation. Now, the party followed suit, and in their budget resolution, which essentially lays out the parameters for this one big beautiful bill, they're ordered to find at least $1.5 trillion in cuts. That's the House committees. Now, tucked inside there, part of that $1.5 trillion is $880 billion that the Energy and Commerce has to find in cuts. Now, a number of scorekeepers have said that that $880 billion threshold cannot be reached without significant changes to Medicaid, and that's precisely where we are right now. There are hardline conservatives, those deficit hawks, who are pushing for these changes to Medicaid, and there are moderate lawmakers who are pumping the brakes and saying, well, no, I don't want to do that. I'm not going to support that. It'll hurt my constituents. That's one of the sticking points. The other has to do with what's known as the state and local tax deduction cap. Now, as part of the 2017 Trump tax cuts, that bill put a cap on the state and local tax deduction, notice known as SALT. It placed a $10,000 cap on SALT. So now we're having a number of Republicans who hail from high tax blue states, think of places like New York, New Jersey, California, who want to raise that cap. Now, that's going to be expensive. So we're hearing a lot of deficit hawks say, well, we don't want to raise the cap. They're pumping the brakes on that. So Medicaid cuts and the SALT deduction cap right now are the two biggest sticking points. But there are a number of others that are percolating under the surface that are likely to ramp up in the coming days. For example, potential cuts to SNAP, known as food stamps, and then also what to do about some of the green energy tax credits included in the Democrats' Inflation Reduction Act that was enacted under Biden back in 2022. There are a number of hardline conservatives who want to do away with a large number of those tax credits, but there are a number of centrists and moderates who say we want to go through it with a scalpel and not a sledgehammer because a lot of those provisions benefit some of their constituents and some of their districts. So a lot of very intricate and tenuous debates going on right now. And truthfully, until they're resolved, House Republicans really cannot move forward with advancing this one big beautiful bill.
Has President Trump started to engage more in the process?
We've seen Trump get involved, from a public standpoint. He was at the NRCC dinner a couple weeks ago, and he told the Republicans sitting in the audience, just you got to get behind the bill. Just put everything else aside, and you have to support this bill. He's also hosted a number of meetings at the White House with different stakeholders and with leadership. So we've seen him sort of play this role from the 30,000-foot level, urging folks to get involved. But is he calling folks yet? I'm not sure that we've gotten to that point of the process, but certainly it's expected to ramp up as we get closer to the point where leadership is actually going to try to put this bill on the floor and pass it through the House with their very slim majority.
Michael, as you know, the White House hasn't revealed its $9 billion rescissions package, which would claw back already approved funding. And we're still waiting on the Treasury Department to announce its, quote, X date for the debt limit. How much of an impact could these have on the reconciliation process?
Yeah, well, the debt limit really has a lot of impact on the reconciliation process. Included in this one big beautiful bill, Republicans want to have to increase the debt limit. Now, they're still figuring out if it's going to be a $4 trillion increase or a $5 trillion increase, but they're planning on dealing with the debt limit through reconciliation. Now, because of that, there's really not this endless deadline and timeline that they have to work with. The Congressional Budget Office has said that it's expected that the U.S. will run out of extraordinary measures and hit that debt limit sometime around August, September, which means that Republicans have to get this bill done by August or September, or else they're going to have to deal with the debt limit outside of reconciliation. So there's a lot of focus right now and folks waiting to hear what the Treasury Department has to say for this exact X date, because that's going to tell Republicans on Capitol Hill whether they have to, speed up their timeline, or if it's just too pie in the sky and there's no chance they can get it done by that time, well, then bipartisan negotiations to increase the debt limit are going to have to start in earnest. And we remember what happened back in 2023. Those were very painstaking deliberations and negotiations between then Speaker Kevin McCarthy, President Biden. It took several months. And in fact, there was a lot of frustrations with McCarthy after that deal was hatched. And in a lot of ways, it was the beginning of the end for McCarthy's speakership. So the X date's going to be a really important part here. The rescissions package also important, but to a bit of a lesser extent. A lot of Republicans have been eager to codify some of the changes that DOJ has made in President Trump's first 100 days in office. The rescissions package is going to, in a lot of ways, achieve that. So folks are going to want to see what savings they can generate from that rescissions package as they go through with this massive reconciliation package. So a lot of different dynamics here, but in a way, they are very interconnected.
So big question, does Speaker Johnson have a fighting chance of getting the bill on Trump's desk by Memorial Day?
Well, look, Judy, I just spoke to Speaker Johnson actually a few minutes ago, and his timeline and his goal was getting this bill out of the House by Memorial Day. But he seemed to open the door to the fact that that may not happen. He said, look, whether we get this done by Memorial Day or we need a little bit more time, it's still going to be a significant bill. But the fact that he's opening the door and recognizing that they maybe need a little bit more time is sort of more of a realistic tone from the speaker and softening this timeline that he has been very adamant about. It's going to be a very high stakes next 3 weeks as Republicans look to work through those very, very complicated issues that I laid out before and get this thing through their ultra slim majority.
High stakes and a lot of moving parts. Thank you so much, Michael Schnell.
Thanks, Judy.